Keep my hands on myself. Take out dust them off, put them back up on the shelf. Kiss my little baby girl isn't me. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. I've been feeling it since 1966. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. Let me kick it like it's 1986. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Got another mouth to feed. Leave it with the babies till the mama call the grave digger. Gone with the fallen leaves. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. I've been feeling it since 1966. Might have had your fill, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. Let me kick it like it's 1986. Might be over now, I feel it still. We could find a war for peace. Give into that easy living, goodbye to my hopes and dreams. Stop flipping for my enemies. We could wait until the walls come over. It's time to give a little to the kids in the middle. Oh, till it falls, won't bother me. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. Yeah, your lovers and a bitch for my heart to eclipse now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Might have had your fill, feel it still.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's Elemental Evolution. I hope that you all had a fantastic week. It seemed like there was a lot of talk about retrogrades and different things happening. But it seemed like to me that most of it just kind of flowed. Even if we're experiencing a bunch of what seems to be maybe conflict, as we push forward, it's seeming to just work itself out and just kind of flow into the space and allowing us to just kind of expand into whatever it is that's coming. So I thought this was a great opportunity to have somebody on with us that is kind of tapped into that, is a part of the Reiki, is a part of the therapeutical idea of expanding our consciousness into the body, the emotions, the spirit. So please help me welcome Sean Bond. Hi, Sean.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. Like a lot going on in the unseen world, so I'm like taking care of yeah, there's a lot of energies like coming at the planets as well. So I don't know, whatever you wanted to talk about, it's your show. I'm gearing up for the roller coaster.
Woohoo! Well, and that's kind of exactly where I wanted to go, is the ups and downs. I wanted to talk to you about some of the experiences that I've been having personally and see where you're at also in this path, because it seems like in the last couple of months, some of us are being pushed beyond the limits of this reality. I'll just say it that way, which kind of sounds, Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi, sci-fi. But in reality, we're living it.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So what's been happening for you? I'll go into, this is my show and they know me. So let's talk about you. Let's hear what's been happening for you in the last let's just start with the last few months, because that's when things really started kicking my ass.
The last few months, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for like I'll try to like broaden the spectrum for multiple viewers of what they may be going through. Uh, there are Okay, so like with this planet, there's a huge amount of drama going on with the timeline, what should manifest, what all the different factions want to manifest. So they are doing lots of chess moves in the background and on the unseen worlds and different local bubbles of reality that are like knit together like a reality blanket. And they're trying to get their strategies to affect the timeline more. I'm trying to get it for like light, dark, and neutral. It's kind of hard because they have different things. So I'm gonna go into the a little bit of the specifics of each. So
Because people don't really, I mean, even though people are starting to have this come into their consciousness, they're starting to be able to understand the things that you're talking about. Go break it down pretty simple, because I feel like a lot of our listeners, this is new info,
right.
even though it's old to us. So let's like break it
Okay.
down from
Yeah.
the beginning.
Okay. I gotcha. Yeah. Thank you. That's a better place to start. So uh, let's start with who we are and like how we're going through stuff. So as humans, not many like know the extensiveness of what that means to be human, but it's like a box of never-ending boxes in the layers and presence and traumas and all kinds of stuff that come up in the mystery of who we are as a species with amnesia and waking up into that as we get more conscious with ourselves and we evolve through processes of physical evolution, spiritual, and mental, as well as the other layers like emotional, etheric, astral dreaming, etc. We're very layered in how we experience things. It's a very advanced technology that we're carrying on in DNA. Our DNA is incredibly rare. It's like a hodgepodge of like so many different lineages, species,
I
all
want to
into
kind of,
one.
if you don't mind, I want to elaborate. Well, I want to just add my thoughts to that really
Sure.
quick, and then I want to hear what your response is to that, because I've
Absolutely.
been studying this. And one of the things that really hit me recently was the 13 family lines. And I'm not talking about the dragon families that are running the world right now. I'm talking about these DNA structures that you're speaking about, which now I understand that there's probably like 13 was just maybe a beginning number. Now there could be millions. I mean, it's infinite. But that original 13 that came into the planet, do you think that that is associated, or that that has something to do with what's going on now? Does that make any sense even?
Oh yeah, it absolutely makes sense. It has a lot to do with it. So like 13, I see a lot of 13 lineages. So like let's get into specific. There's like 13 major families for the system of domination control plus, and like what they deviate from, as well as they're like you can see it as incarnating wars of some type where the system of domination control has multidimensional apex predators that incarnate into multiple skin suits all once for a strategy on the planet, and they team up with others in a loose, half backstab, half needing to stay together to perform and keep their reign over what they have and also inherited. Because it's like you couldn't sum up what's going on here in a few words or a few sentences, but there's also like systems of 13 in like soul groups and families and DNA lineage clusters that come from light, dark, so all light, dark, and neutral. So which specifically of the 13, because I also know the introductions you're talking about, but also we can expand that we actually even have more that they're introducing because they're not just one species, they're like hybrids of taking DNA from across the galaxy. So it's quite even, like there in the 13 of those layers, there are even more layers than that to like go into, which is even better because there's even more presence. Especially if as a species waking up, we get the, because you can see it as like if it was a vehicle, it'd be a really expensive sports car that we have, but it's broken down, like compared to other experiential bodies that other beings have throughout the galaxy or even on this planet. Um,
And
and it's broken
so,
down, so we just got to repair it and get it up, get rid of all the blockages, get everything synced up, connected, flowing, get rid of all the limiter factors and the influence, and
yes.
you know, and
So that was the influx of the energy from Nibiru, in my opinion, right? Nibiru is past. People are still trying to play with it, but Nibiru is past. And as it passed, it literally lifted the vibration of the Sherman resonance. I hope I'm saying that right. But it went from the 7.8 ohm to 136, which the planet is currently resting at. That's never happened in history. They have no record of that ever happening. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. But so what you're saying is being even confirmed through science.
uh,
And
um,
when you're talking about this DNA expansion, do you think that we individuals are part of that alien race, or is it outside? And are there individuals who are actually in knowing and in existence of that?
okay, I understand what you mean. Okay, so like there are lots of factions that have a stake in what's happening here, and most of them are in on like the other factions aren't completely unaware of. Like most beings here, even the Anunnaki, don't have a full understanding of the grasp of what is going on in here, and they have been entangled with it from the beginning, and they have a lot they're dealing with. So when we're talking about the Anunnaki and the Nibiru concept, I can give you my perspective on it. I don't know everything that everyone else is saying, so I don't want to also throw. No, there's some stuff going on with it, but like I see a binary star system that isn't just a planet, that also has a dwarf star that has even more planets and also some moons and other stuff, and they seem to travel in a cluster slingshot from solar system to solar system and have collected DNA from around the galaxy. This is a DNA lineage is majority Sirius B and Orion, but like they collected so much of everything else. They have shape shifting capacities and also genetic programming to create multiple species. So the game is
Ooh,
more
genetic
expansive.
programming.
Yeah, yeah.
You said genetic programming. I want to hear more about that okay, because I feel, to be honest with you, I feel like there are a lot of people on this planet that are a hybrid, or I don't know how else to, I don't know how else to turn this, but they're in the human form, they are in the unconscious, but they are actually being activated right now with exactly what you're talking about. It seems to be coming to the consciousness. More people are being affected. They're being hit. And that's this energy influx. Do you think that, because I agree with you, by the way, that I think that there are other races on this planet that are entangled just the way we are. And in fact, there's an interview. I don't know how valid it is, but there was a reptilian interview that someone had done where they actually stated that they are also and this will be really weird, and I'm just going to throw it out there, but basically who they were saying were the originators and who originally started the DNA and the genetic research, or what do you want to call it, studies, because that's in my opinion, or in my understanding, that was the initiation, or that was the beginning, was the Palladians. And again, I'm not saying that I know that that's true, but that is something that in that interview was said, and I've heard that on other
Mm-hmm.
levels. Anyway, so where do you think we as the human race are standing in this? Because like you said, you look around and it seems like you've got what, 70% of the population still in complete unconsciousness. I mean, even if it's hit them, they somehow formed it outside of themselves, pushed it out, and created more chaos. And then you had those who did grab onto things and are, but it's almost like being pushed off the planet.
Mm. Yeah. So we're resolving the karma for not just this universe, but multiple other universes that we're connected to in this multiverse. And the the human design for the DNA human skin suit technology is in concept going back before this universe, but it doesn't this one started here. There's various factions that brought things together in concept for a mapping of the universe as a whole, as well as what we're doing here, which is the concept of limitless genetic potential by combining all these different races together under one species that have been warring against each other for long ass amounts of time in this universe, and bringing them all under one species with amnesia so that they can resolve all their drama, and then allowing a little bit of the system of domination control is abusing the leeway they have gotten, because we have like if the universe was in its perfect balance, there would be a lava lamp of spirits going up and down the spectrums of light, neutral, and dark, and naturally grow from those experiences and be able to maintain and balance and purify them and optimum
And
capacity for growth. But there's an invading force that wants to
yeah,
take everything down into the dark spectrum and hold it there in mind control and in unbalanced state of antithesis to source, which is what we know as evil. And if it balances itself, which is what this universe is wanting to do, and then it's culminating in more layers of quarantine zones of like what we'd say is the prison planet. It's prison for a lot of beings, but it's also seen as a necessary to increase the state of being in this universe for the better. And also we're culminating in a reason for being here, as seeing it as winning the lottery because of the advanced state of evolution that we have here to grow faster than ever, like anywhere else. Especially if your free will in going into yourself and accessing the mystery school of the self, your connection to your infinite part of your spirit, the technology involved, syncing that up with the DNA technology, your reality bubble technology, and protecting your sacred space and separating from the system penetrations of reality manipulation and, you know, telling us who we are and trying to limit us. I'm very much getting off subject, so
no, that's actually exactly where I wanted to go. I would like to jump back a little bit. You said mystery school,
mm,
and that's something that I've done a lot of. Well, I've been involved in what they call a mystery school. I did some interviews with Tim Rothschild, who is also very involved in those schools. And the studies, in my opinion, are very similar to what the Gnostics, to what the Wiccans, to what the pagans actually have lost. And the reason I bring that up is because I feel that the religion, the money system, the elite, all of these projections on the planet, yes, they are an outside interjection. They are also showing us still the reflection of the collective. If you look around and you see people, you have those who are trying to change the world. And then you have a majority that are trying to keep it the same, based in fear. And that is, in my opinion, when Nibiru passed, and I'm gonna give my opinion on that because I know that it's different than most. Most people are saying that it's still coming, that it's still passing, that we're still experiencing it. In my vision, it passed already. It was a time opening. It influxed the planet. the other planets, including Saturn, which then also intensified so many areas on this planet that are not of our highest vibration. That is not necessarily a bad thing. It was, like you were saying, a clearing, right? We got to look at the monsters, the demons within ourselves. And then whatever was not cleared came flushing back into the reality. It wasn't to harm you, it wasn't to be a bad thing, it was to show you what your anchors are. Right? Because in this time, it was like we only had so many days, not because you're on a time limit, but because of the way that it was moving. There were only so many days that it was actually an open for that new dimensional reality that some of us are now in limbo with, I feel. What do you think of that?
I think you're going along with the energy frequencies pretty well. I've I like hearing perspectives, so it's always good to hear. So, um, my thing with Nibiru and the Aurora, like a planet that has a drive in it that allows it to traverse the system's original. Um, so they're doing a lot and a lot of secret stuff. So I'm gonna see what I'm allowed to talk about with that. 1 second. Um, so they're going through the traumas, and being forced to face their shadow self, micro and macro. So all the beings that we know in that mythos, uh, people are very confused of like what's going on, and it's rightfully so. They would want to confuse it, so it's like a lot. Um, so you can think of them as a multidimensional beings that have multiple versions of themselves that spread through the multiverse in experiences. They will have a tree of spirit that expands back to its source of creation, and wherever that goes, you can read that back. Um, these beings have gone through lots of changes since what's recorded about them, and even that has little bits of propaganda based on them wanting to influence what others think about them. They have multiple incarnations in other species, so you like look at the brothers and Anu and the other. They will have existences in Sirius B. They'll have them on those binary star systems, as well as through the different planets that they've traveled to. They will have naturally your higher self, which in the process of spiritual evolution, you are anchoring and manifesting in a physical body to do some really big work in karmic resolution machines. We are like really good at it. Like every second you're here, you resolve shitloads of stuff and you make your future better. But the you'd anchor into the physical reality of 3D, which everything's kind of getting quarantined down here for resolution, and there would be a kite of your higher self, which expands to a higher perspective of over the hilltop and seeing your future timelines and manifesting things and spiritual contracts for experience for you to help bring order and balance and healing to the chaos of what we've been handed.
Yes.
And you would be bringing more of your higher self into that body so you could become your own higher self and management for the expansion of the self, because it's like branching. Older higher selves will get the advancement in their evolution to the point where they can make natural sparks and shards of themselves to expand their experience to other planets and go on all the carnival rides at once. You'll have simultaneous existing versions, past lives, and all this stuff that you can read back and I do for people. Um, so you could see that chain of them coming from that drama being lured here by lots of different awarenesses, light, dark, and neutral, on what they're doing in collecting all this DNA and making their thing was to become really advanced in DNA programming, make the ultimate skin suit, and they've tried that many times, and as well as slave species, all that. But
Well,
they
that's where the question, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's a question in the chat about that. So I definitely continue with what you're saying, but I want to go back to the genetic engineering. Go ahead.
sure. Yeah, I'll write that down. So so all these beings, like you could see Anu, for instance, he will have multiple versions of himself that have evolved. Higher self in the sun. When you enter a solar system, spiritually, your higher self has to go through the sun and then expand to multiple planets and set up bases of higher selves that will expand their experiences and self and strategy and themes for what they're doing and trying to manifest in that school of that planet, of what they're going through in resolution, drama, and what they're trying to hold up and maintain throughout time, and what has tried to prevent them from doing that, and systems of domination, control, all that. So this was like a diet, like Coke system of domination, control, compared to others that are also trying to infiltrate us. And they set up at a time like our species is a combination of what they introduced in genetic, and an already existing species on this planet has already gone through multiple upgrades and integrations with other species that have been here before the Anunnaki.
Do you? Yes. Okay. So the Anunnaki, but now, do you think that is? Is the original species reptilian, or is it humanoid?
Like every species that is coming here that has time travel technology, one way or another has a especially negative version of their factions that want to go back in time and make it so that their species is the first species. So we have timeline wars for that in that drama, and like so much more that have tried like 70 plus species that want to be the first species, and you can like tune into that and see how they're setting up these bases back in time, and they're flag in the ground saying that they claim Earth or whatever, and Earth is kind of laughing at that. You can definitely see her as having a consciousness and a strategy for what's going on here, and ultimately she wants to resolve things and bring us with her in evolution to like spread, because she's like a library for DNA and advanced wisdom, and she adopts lots of species, especially in inner Earth. So the reptoids and the Naga, and there's lots of different reptoids, and not just the Alpha Draconis. There's all different kinds, and most of them hate the Alpha Draconis. But they've been here for a long time. There are different humanoid types that have been here since the beginning as well. And some of those meet up genetically with us as they've been passed down. There's so much I can't blanket term. I'm trying to see if I can ask your question better. There's insectoids that claim here. There's dragons. And dragons, when I say that, I don't just like Alpha Tronus think they're dragons. They claim the symbology of dragons, and they want people to believe that. And they also take the genetics of dragons. Dragons are like way older. They're like way more ancient. They have light, dark, and neutral. Some are older than this universe going back, and some of them are here in mostly energetic and spiritual form, holding space and anchorage in crystal clusters, elementally wise, in inner Earth, and expanding to protect the Dreamtime astral and influence, and also incarnate into skin suit types like humanoid or whatever's around.
Yes.
And they're very cool. I love talking about dragons. And they've been through a lot. And they're spawn beings from a planet. They're reality programmers. They're elemental hierarchy, like peak of hierarchical order in the symbology, also of the residual image that they're keeping, because they can also shapeshift and do multiple things, especially on how old they are, their evolutionary path. Most of them are born with like 30 plus % of their past life memories, even in a system of domination control. It's interesting.
Well, what's fascinating about that is that the past life is not, it's actually generally seen as a continuation. There isn't a stopping, it's not that there isn't the break or the stopping points, it's just that the entire reality is just a continuum, from my understanding. And it's very interesting because the concept of past lives is such, it's not that I don't believe in it, I know it's true, but it is such it's such a limited idea when you start to think of going into just a meat suit.
Right.
It's, you know, when people just think of their past lifetimes as, well, I was someone else. I get it, but it's more than that, right? And I
Yeah.
think that most people, and this will blow it out of the water for people, is that most people have actually been and experienced dimensional realities before coming here. And so when we start talking about genetic engineering, I think what's fascinating is that if you take a look at how the human race has evolved, and you take a look at how technology has evolved, and you take just the overall whole concept of how Earth is moving forward, it's very it's slow in the space of time of now. But if you took each individual and mashed them all together and actually put that into a spin, it's like what you were saying. It would be so phenomenally fast. It's so fast tracked that you couldn't even catch that ride.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, I mean, it's like, and so, but what I'm seeing and what I'm finding more and more is that it's not just the dimensional realities that are outer again of the planet. It's like what you said about Mother Earth and taking on in the inner planet. And actually, in my opinion, I mean, she has her own consciousness, her own reality. She is part of all of this collective that we are experiencing. But it's also a factor, a force of when she got pushed, it pushed us as well. It pushed, there was an opening in her as well. When I just don't believe that she could go from vibrating at the level, be shot up to 136 and not be freaking the fuck out. Because as a woman, the last 2 months, I've been freaking out. And I'm not saying that, you know, is necessarily the same, but on some levels, that feminine coming back in is happening.
Yes, absolutely.
And yeah, it's really, and so in my opinion, it is Earth, it is Gaia waking up. It's almost like she was almost a sleeping state. She was resting,
Yes.
meditating, you know,
Yeah.
maybe giving birth. I don't know what she was doing, you know, but there's all these things that were going on. Well, she's awake now.
She's been wounded from multiple reality destructions and things of. She's been teleported before. You can actually like tune into this and like see it as a record, and that can be catastrophic. And lots of you already know, but so like she's raising her frequency. She knows about this. She's slowly taking back more of her grids and her reality strategically by herself, her team's resistance-free Earth, her chess moves in what's going on like throughout the many realities of her surface, because it's not just her surface, it's inner Earth as well as the expressions of dimensionality within the other realms, and all that she holds territory over. And she is being helped by many, many beings, and she's contracting them to help her. And when we go into ourselves, heal ourselves, we can heal everyone around us and start helping Earth to heal. And we become like her antenna psychic cannons that like of love and expansion. Let's see. She's like upping her frequency to make it uncomfortable for the more parasitic beings in this reality and phase them out. This is not the only people that are phasing out. Some brave beings that chose in contract to be here for a time and then have an opportunity to stay or go, and their higher self is taking on a lot, and so like sometimes they want to go, but also to push the limits on our consciousness, and because it affects us entirely and how we perceive things, how we process things, time, how we experience.
Let's go more into that.
What'd you say?
let's go more into that, because there's some question in the chat. They want more clarity on the multidimensional realities. Like, what is it that we're experiencing now, here and now, as far as if you don't have consciousness of being in a dimensional reality, okay, I mean, people know about it, but to actually have that experience is something that most have not had. So
Okay.
break that down
There's
a little
two
bit more.
aspects that I'll go into, and thank you for reminding me. Okay, so like with the incarnation rules, and then I'll go into the how to like get your perception up and running to perceive multi dimensions, and that I also teach that. So like we were saying before, like Anu, like you can apply this for many different beings. That spirit will have existences all throughout the multiverse, and there'll be expressions of them in light, dark, and neutral. And sometimes the light don't agree with everything the dark part is doing. The system domination controls are targeting beings of light and trying to anchor them in some way to a false light matrix of converting negative versions of them or less protected by attacking the shit out of them and targeting them and then turning them into dark versions of them to get them in competition with the whole of the being and steal their energy and abilities and use it to prop up a system of domination control and use that as authority to keep it going. So like they're being used as the culmination point for the physical and fourth and beyond, because those beings also have like higher dimensional aspects that are also here, and they're incarnating into human skin suits and other experiences for multiple points of resolution. When you entangle with Earth, she ultimately, whether you need to know about it or not, will take parts of you and put them into the game for resolution, which will help that being. And I'm saying that like whether they like know it or not, is if they're a negative being and they don't want to resolve that, they're gonna get it anyway, and it will heal their entire being. So like you can also apply that to everyone that's here. You will have a tree of yourself that is expanded through the multiverse, and you having a piece in here, especially in the physical, is really really amazing, because it's something that a lot of beings are trying to get here as soon as they become aware of, like, besides all the because it's a high difficulty game being here. It's like it beats you up quite a bit. Hard knock school of life. And
Yeah.
but it teaches you faster than anything else, and it's a little bit of abusive teacher. It's a meat grinder, but if you flow it's a meat grinder until you become one with the earth, and you unite with her, and you work with her in your spiritual entourage and help you not in competition, because some of the dark versions of us that have been targeted will be in competition to her and stealing energy. So we have to resolve that. And when we come more in with her, the universe as well, and your source spark within your heart, because we are infinite beings fighting finite assholes, we can overcome everything that's being done against us and outperform them strategically in chess moves, energetic chess moves, and unseen world. So when you're wanting to access more of your dimensions, realize that you have a technology, you have a supercomputer as more advanced than any other technology we have on this planet. But if you don't know that, it's a paperweight that you can walk around in. But even that, you can get stronger in the things that you choose to access with your excitement and become a genius. Everyone can become a genius. Nothing is limited. Nothing is set in stone. You can change your reality if you understand the foundation of it, the rules, what is the to-do list you need to accomplish to get from A to B. And you can access your body, and there's a manual to how to get it up and running, whatever is you're inheriting from your DNA lineage technology, because that is big, because you could have like some really rare stuff. You have rare stuff, but and
So
also what you're inherited from your spirit.
Right. So talk more about this manual, because I think, see, this is something that I am actually, I'm somewhat familiar with in mystery teachings. That was something that they talked about, was actually decoding and the Akashic records being within the cellular structure. And to me, that makes so much more sense. than, some filing cabinet sitting in the sky, obviously. But it's also about when you said the manifesting,
Yes, yes.
what I'm finding is that for myself, and please confirm this or tell your experience, but for me, what I'm finding is in the last couple of months, it's exactly what you said as far as the negativity rising, right? As far as what I call them as the anchors within us that keep us from moving forward. So as those were coming up within me, I could see it. I still turned into a 5-year-old kicking and screaming.
Mm.
It was almost like a death in a weird way because the ego didn't want to let go of so many perspectives, so many ideas, so many realities of truth that we've taken on to this planet. And it's just like for myself when you're talking about understanding our lineage. I have given myself so many labels on this planet. I have all of this education. I went to law school. I have a degree in behavioral science and business. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. It's all bullshit. It was all part of the game. I mean, yes, I learned and I expanded in certain areas, but when it all came down to it, they were all just taking me outside of myself.
Mm.
Even the healer, right? Labeling myself as the healer or being an empath or all of these other things that we decide that that's what we are, right?
Mm.
When in reality, we just are. I guess that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's like what you're saying with the planet. Like we are a part of all of this. And so as we're experiencing it and as we're rising in this consciousness, it seems to me that I'm having to clear and transmute about 3,000 times a day because my mind is trained and wants to jump back into the 3D reality, the structure, the game. Because it's what we know.
Yeah. Yeah, you're healing not just you, but your entire spirit and other versions of you. You're like connected to 9 other versions of you that are bleeding over to you that are also in your spiritual entourage aware of you. Some are you have a large spiritual entourage. You've got a lot of elementals and dragons. You have existed in that format many times. Some of them still exist and are aware of you. Anyway, so we're here to
Yeah.
master manifestation and processing fear and limitation. This is one of the bigger dramas here, and so many people underestimate it um, because a lot of things ride on what happens here. What become a lot of species are afraid of are psionic potential or as a psionic emergent species. So some are wanting to limit that, some are wanting to make it go faster. So it's like a perfect equation for manifestation because reality destruction events at this point, Earth is very protected. She has armies behind her to protect her with her. So she's stopping most of the big stuff and also deviating with the timeline to allow those manifestations of destruction events on a different timeline so that all can be experienced and learned from. And also some of us are in those, so we can tune into those. But like, let me get back on top. Ego, the ego man, it's like it's a survival mechanism. It's what we've gone through lots of traumas to baseline help us survive. And once we get out of survival into thriving, we expand more and more, and we have to face the ego self because it tries to grow with us as well. Um, and it's the programs of what are put into our parasympathetic and our of what we believe we are, and is the difference is of what we are this physical lifetime compared to what we are in the entireness of ourself. So when we look at the limitations and heal the shadow self, which shows us this to-do list of things that we can do to make ourselves more powerful, less blocked, less limited, less like um, to help the future things show up on all of our to-do lists to resolve so that the
Yes.
future is better and less destruction events, more is learned from, better potentials, because it's all being done by versions of us in a different form of time that want to see us do well as another aspect to themselves. or also versions of ourselves that are in competition that want to throw wrenches in our systems, or don't know that they are doing that by getting their energy stolen for that mimic authority to incur upon our reality and throw things in our way. When things come up on the dashboard of your body, of feeling states, attack, or migraines, pain, all this, or little indicators, it's all can be read into, or like how many things are bleeding over right now. You can like tune into that, and each one of those may be having to do with a physical problem, like maybe candida or something, or going to your multidimensional bodies of your skin suit this lifetime, such as you could make different filing systems for your body technology, and then audit them and learn about them, like your dreaming body, your astral body, your etheric body, mental body, emotional body, different types of elemental bodies like fire, earth, air, and wind, and expanding into what you've activated and what you have in DNA technology, as well as a spirit. And you can perceive into multiple dimensions and have parts of yourself helping to make the game and what you manifest here better, as well as your ability to manifest. We're here now in one of the hardest difficulties it is being here, because we're bombarded with so much at all time. And most of it, our higher self is holding up, and is trying to teach us how to hold it up ourselves so we can expand upon it infinitely. And so, like, if you learn how to master things here, you can hold it up pretty much at anywhere else. So, like, getting out of the feeling state of helplessness is like the biggest thing that I try to help with people and get them empowered with every session that I do or interview, because we're not just in a game where we're kept here and we can't do anything to help the situation or get out, and we're just in prolonged suffering. There are things we can do when we access the mystery school of the self, do the to-do list of what we need to get of the state of realizing where we don't want to be, which is suffering, to where we're in our highest excitement and we're in oneness with the universe, not in opposition to it, and no natural law and a common moral code, so we advance and don't step on each other's toes and come to unity to resolve this big drama, which requires us all to come to unity. We can't just, I mean, part of the evolutionary state spiritually is us going into self, each individual going through their own experience at their own pace that they want to do, and it's a lot of free will involved. But eventually we all have to find a way to break bread, and want more than anything to find truth, which is what has manifested in reality and what is, and that also understanding a little bit more of the multidimensional game and how we can experience multiple, and why multiple different perspectives from different sides, and then realizing we can learn wisdom from all of it, even if like there's some dogmas and stuff, there's still wisdom in there. So not to throw the baby out with the bathwater for anything, but also want truth more than anything, so that we can grow faster than we have ever before.
I think that's the hardest part, honestly.
Yeah.
Is when people start to come to a certain level of consciousness and really understand the manifestation, in my opinion, you start to understand that everything that is coming into your consciousness is a reflection of what you are vibrating. It doesn't mean that they are made up or that they don't have their own consciousness or reality. It means that they are showing up to answer your ad, in my opinion. So we vibrate at a certain level. It's like a sign above our head. And those that are vibrating in a similar way or that can answer that ad will show up. So when we are vibrating from our wounding, from traumas that happen in this lifetime, in lifetimes that we have carried in this cellular structure, the memories of all lifetimes, and the patterns repeat themselves over and over again, that's the gift. It's the most fucked up part, because that's where we get stuck. Instead of looking at it as the gift, instead of clearing it, we fall into the story and we begin to relive it.
Beautiful.
Right? That's right, and that's why they call it a cell, the trap, right? That's why they put you into a prison cell. The cell, the trap is within our own being because we can't get out of our minds. We allow the structure, we allow the cellular memories to recreate themselves based out of an emotion that is trapped within our being. And so if we take a look, and there's a lot of people that deny this. They're like, oh, no, it's my life is nothing like that. Or I don't do anything like that. I hate that person. I don't do. Almost every time after taking a real true look, you'll find that absolutely that consciousness is there. So if you had somebody in your life that was a real shithead, was always stabbing you in the back, was always doing this, was always doing that, was always doing all these different things when you were a young child, you will find that there are people like that all around you. And we want to blame them. We want to blame the people. We want to blame the government. We want to blame everything. But what everything is showing us, including the government, including the elite, including all of these different structures, are showing us a piece within ourselves, the judgments, the structure that is not of that community, of that collection, of that connection. And that's the dying of the ego is not about a losing of self, in my opinion. It's about gaining the true self. It's about gaining the self of recognizing that we are all one, but we are all still having this individual experience, and that we can infinitely continue to manifest not just on this planet, but in the universe. It's like a wave. And so as we are clearing and transmuting what I call the anchors, it's not just helping us, it's not just changing our lives, it's changing those around us, it's changing our generational lines, the children after us, the people before us. Everything, like what you were saying, is being cleared. So we only have about 6 minutes till the break, but I want your perception on how it is. What is a technique, maybe a simple technique that you start with that starts allowing people to tap into their own bodies because we've been so disconnected.
Okay. So most people will be walking around blocked and disconnected, especially when they want this information. So I'll go from that. You're wanting to initiate with your I am present statement of bravado and heart space with your words out loud. The rules of your reality, what you don't agree to, what you want to happen in progression. Your higher self will be listening. Your subconscious understands English, and you got to get into gear with programming the body. So in the beginning, sometimes it'll be a little rebellious with the parasympathetic program to not want to do what you say or not do it efficiently. So if you get biofeedback or are consistent with your programming, you will initiate that command, and you can monitor it over time how much energy you need to give to complete that program, how long it will take. And you could do an audit for your body of different things going on that are blocking you and shift towards goals of what you want to see it become and initiate your higher self to automatically start doing them. If you become aware of what they are, you will make them go infinitely faster in resolution, such as like you have 9 different versions of yourself bleeding over. 7 are existing versions of you, past, present, and future, that are dragons. One's like from Egypt, and one's from something to do with Mu and the inner Earth civilizations that still exist in Anchor with mermaid concepts. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and you're healing those versions of you, and sometimes they bring um, things in trade and back and forth and what you can do and resolve because you're healing yourself all the time. and helping them ground and find anchorage. And when you are able to develop a line of communication, which I also teach to, people how to learn telepathy and be able to communicate with your spiritual guides and the beings that have sent you telepathic text messages in the heart. Start with your heart if you want to do an activation of some kind to start purifying. Find more and more ways to heal yourself, detox. Look for blockages in the system. What kind of things specifically do you are you wanting, and you think your viewers would be interested in expanding?
Well, like one of the things that I do, especially if I'm working with somebody who's not really familiar, I mean, they know what I do or whatever it is, but they're not really familiar with the concept of cellular structure or dimensional healing and all these other things, is I take them into a breathing exercise. Because that's something that, as simple as it is, most people don't know how to breathe.
Nice. That's really good.
Yeah, and so that brings them into the body then, right? And then you can start. So then I'll let them talk about something for a few minutes, right? Like whatever's going on in their day or whatever's bothering them. And then instead of falling into the story and asking them, well, how do you feel about that and all that other stuff, I go into where is it at in your body?
Mm.
Right? Once you've done the breathing exercises, you start becoming more conscious of the body. So they'll say, I don't know, or they'll say, different things. Pay attention. And once you can bring them into paying attention and getting them into the level of, okay, it's in my heart, or it's in my hip, or it's in my knee, or it's, it can be anywhere, because anywhere that you're starting to feel something. And once you get them to come into the consciousness of that, boom, boom, it releases automatically. It's almost like just bringing in the light, bringing in the consciousness, just bam, opens it right up. And one of the things now it can happen is that it'll come up, and instead of releasing it, just like everything else, they fall into the story. So as a life coach or as a guide, instead of letting them fall in the story, we rewrite the story. Right? So if they start falling into the structure of the story, well, I was abused, and I had this, and I had that. Okay, where was that at in the body? Right? Where did you store that at? Because it's not in the mind, it's in the body. And what was the emotion based in that? Mad, sad, or glad? Right? And getting them to actually come into consciousness and connection with what they're transmuting, what they're actually relating to, as opposed to the story.
Absolutely.
So when we come back, I think that a lot of your technique, the Reiki and the dimensional understanding, is just another form of what I'm doing. And so I'd like to go more into that. And I have some other questions for you about the metaphysicals and about the mystery school, and I want to go into those. So we will be back in just a few minutes, and give us about 5, and we'll start this conversation again. Thank you, Sean.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I was lying because I don't know where Vin is. Okay, so I guess we're not going to take a break. Sorry. You don't get to pee or get a drink.
Okay. That's...
Sorry. So we're just going to jump right back in because, well, first of all, because that's what we're going to do. But secondly, that way we don't have the disruption, because when we start talking about mystery schools, it really throws people, I think. They start thinking about magic and how it can't be a part of their lives, or how it's something, again, outside of themselves, or how it's a mystery, right? How it's these things, again, that we're not allowed to know.
Yeah.
But in truth, the more I learn that I already knew, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's almost, as I was, I was reared very different than most, so I'm not going to make claim that I have a real existence in, a lot of the programming that went on here in the time that it probably should have for me. But I can see that there are more people opening up to the ideas that we're speaking about. And that if they can actually understand that these mystery schools, what, in my opinion, and please correct me or add to it, is it is teaching people how to tap into themselves, how to go back inside and how to resolve the issues, first of all, how to heal themselves physically, because that's another thing is I have seen and witnessed on so many occasions, as soon as they have a clearing of the body, the emotional release, whatever ailment they had disappears immediately.
Mm.
And that can be physical. I mean, that can be allergies. That can be food allergies as far as animals. That can be actually a physical anything. An arm can hurt, a leg can hurt, all these different things. As soon as they do the emotional release, it automatically is just healed.
Yeah, I like that. You're going into emotional healing.
Well, it's something that as far as, and this is, I'm going to kind of jump back and forth, and then I want you to expand on it, is the feminine coming back in. Because even for women, we have been reared in the masculine. That's the rape culture. Take what you can get, take it all. Don't have care for those around you, or those that you don't are not directly connected to don't matter, kind of thing. That's the rape culture. That's the masculine. The left brain doesn't have the emotional side. That to me was the infrastructure that came in and tried to dominate. That's what came in, and when I say infiltrate, I mean that. Like, I feel like that this planet was having one experience and it got taken over by another. Not saying that it's necessarily bad or that we don't need those experiences, but I don't think that it was the original intent.
Right.
And the female, the feminine, is rising again, like we said, because Gaia is awakening. But also, I'm just noticing within women, it's about realizing the masculine within us has, in so many cases, taken over and not allowed the feminine within each being to actually participate in this game. And that's a lacking, because the mother, the female, brings in the empathy, the love, the healing. So what is your perspective on all of that?
You gave me a whole bunch to work with. I wrote down notes, so I'll go into it. So, like, with the psychotropic breath work of changing your thought into from like down from hyperstate and anxiety and stress of beta and to alpha, more calm down, into theta and higher up. You can use your your breath kind of like a TARDIS machine, where you use it as a mechanism of an operating system that you set up to be the switches and knobs part to amplify things of your intention. When you enter into theta state consciousness, you have less thought and it's more powerful in what you like. Would you use it for programming your body? So like using that, and then pinpointing the places on the dashboard for your vehicle for pain and things that bleed over in emotion is definitely part of that, especially when you can go into meditation and track it back to where it is coming from, relive it, maybe even clairvoyantly in a simulated effect of you remembering, like maybe a memory that happened in a trauma that was anchored on this timeline or is bleeding over from your other lives, or your DNA lineage, which can inherit it. So when you're focusing in and you're breathing into that wound, and you give your higher self the trust and the gratitude to help you expand that energy of focus, you can resolve any of the problem. Especially if you know what it is going on, you can make it go way faster. But then, so the mystery schools, there are all types of mystery schools. I'll usually describe as a school that is being made in the now, so it is being a mystery, and it has to do with all the individuals involved. Every religion, every spirituality, every Harry Potter-esque like school that's in secret is has a mystery. There's a mystery school to that. Every person on the planet has a mystery school with their higher self and their DNA, their light body wisdom from their spirit that's inheriting memory of all that you've ever been through. And also, your DNA lineages will have mystery schools of to-do lists for abilities and operatings and skill sets and knowingness. And energy, elementals, dragons, and especially going into the self is the big mystery school. As well as Source and Earth will have a mystery school of to-do lists to expanding, get and becoming more empowered, so you don't feel inadequate or unable to create change in the world for yourself and everyone around you for the better, and anchor in what you want to manifest. So mystery schools have a light, dark, and neutral aspect to them. They have all kinds of drama that's going on, but their main anchorage of why they exist is wisdom to expand either into the self or into the awareness of the universe at large. So there's many things that can be gained by going into the self and accessing your own pre-tailored, more discernative, more free will, more expansive, more down to the root of the problem type of mystery school, which I teach for people, and accessing that and reading in, accessing more and more of the levels. So also I'll go into the feminine, like we are dealing with the drama of all the species that are connected to us and the belief systems of all our ancestors and their reality bubble and what we're inheriting. So when we get into creating our reality bubble and our rules and what we believe and expanding on it, we're also dealing with all those and have to deal with them as they crash into each other and grow and make our entire view on reality stronger, which is good. So the feminine coming back, absolutely. We go in and out of sine waves of gendered polarity of feminine and masculine, which can also express itself as other things, more than just two genders in other species that are culminating to us. But it is what is culminating to switch from a male-dominated society, industrial complex, and where that abuses both the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine to separate from one another, be disempowered, and not be able to throw off parasitic control that wants to get us into either left brain or right brain mind control prisons, so that we don't become a left and right brain balanced being able to process the infinite information of our self and access all our DNA and wisdom. The planets, like the biggest thing that I'm seeing now with getting the feminine back into balance is the state of being for the solar system as well as the galaxy at large is coming more into the feminine state. It's the feminine state seems to not want to dominate the spectrum. They want a balance for them, but it is also their turn to take the reins. So it's definitely Earth is working with many divine sacred beings as well as other planets and the moon, and to get rid of the suppression system, activate them more, so that they can add their chess move to the divine feminine coming back stronger and stronger, and each anchorage in a divine feminine becoming awakened and activated on this planet intensifies how fast that comes to be, and just it bleeds over to so many things. Earth, what am I allowed to say?
Everything. Um, yeah, and okay, so I'm just going to jump in for a second, and that's, I just want to make clarity about the feminine, because so many people think feminism or feminists are the feminine, and that is not true. The feminine are exactly what you're saying. They're bringing in a balance. They're bringing in the motherly. They're the discipline and the structure that needs to be changed is not going to be from a place of war and hatred. It's going to be like looking at a 3-year-old, right? When you look at your baby and they're being naughty, you're not like, oh, I hate your guts. I wish you'd die. You know, you look at them and you're like, oh my God, you're so freaking cute, but you don't get to do that. Right? I mean, it's a whole different perspective. And that's what's coming back. And it's not just the females that are going to experience this, it's the males as well. When we say that the feminine is coming back, it doesn't mean that the females are rising into domination and we're going to control everything like we already don't. But it's a matter of really taking a look at how it is as a society, as a structure. What have we made important? Who have we put in control? What is it that we are experiencing that is only a reflection of within us? What do we have to change within us? How can we be more kind? How can we start loving people on a level? It doesn't mean that you have to love what everybody does. It doesn't mean you have to run around hugging and kissing everybody. It means actually having an understanding and empathy that everybody's just where they're at. Like, it doesn't matter. If it affects me, it's because I am calling that in. It doesn't mean that they have permission to mistreat me or anyone else. It means that if you're pulling in that vibration, it's vibrating from within you. So if somebody comes in and is abusive, it doesn't excuse them. It's not a pass for them to be abusive, but it's a time to take a look at, okay, what is it that is vibrating in me that is calling that is bringing that into my existence for me to see?
Mm, absolutely.
To me, that's what it is. And that, I mean, that's everything. I'll have people say things like, well, I parked in the parking lot and somebody scratched my car. I wasn't even out there. It didn't have anything to do with me. Well, I don't believe that that's true. I think if you're vibrating in a space where you parked way out in the, way out so that nobody would touch your car, you're putting out to the universe, touch my car,
Mm,
because the universe is literal. So when you put out there, I want, the universe is like, okay, baby, let's put you into want.
mm, right.
Right? That's the word. The spells, the words are spells. But it's deeper than magic. It's a literal, again, it's the words that we are using are the thoughts and the vibration that we are creating. So as we're reliving these stories that are from within the cellular wounding, the structure that is of that masculine left brain dominant control system, as we're letting go of that and as certain aspects are dying off in our DNA, I believe, it's literally a death. It's almost like watching an aspect of yourself completely pass.
Mm, yes.
Because, yeah, and it's interesting. I hadn't experienced that before. I mean, it was something that I have not had a lot of reality of death in this lifetime, and so to watch it happen within myself was a huge grieving point, and a point of grieving of disconnecting from a planet, from a game that, as much as we bucket, we've actually enjoyed and loved it
Mm,
on some level because we kept playing it.
right.
Right? But go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, like with the karma thing, that somebody might something in somebody with an ancestral haunting might get influenced to go key a car, and that might be the influence of that person resolving karma with that person in unknowingness, and then it going off. Anyway, so like healing divine feminine, uh, I tuned into something that my higher self gave me to like give you an example. There's many different ways to heal that essence within us. You can actually apply a program of energy to it that permeates through your body into your biophoton emissions that end in the electromagnetic field that you have. That's programmable, um, and it can be limited and expanded. So you can then scan for what level it's operating at, and most people I see that are incredibly powerful divine feminines, like you have like part of that expression to yourself, and you can expand on it way more. And your experience, that operating system heals everyone around you and has its own line of interaction that can be seen or unseen and known or not known, but your higher self is aware of it and is helping you and will not stinge an opportunity. Uh, you you can so every person has a energetic frequency to their light body that emanates out omnidirectionally, and some of these programs you can apply the filing system of sacred masculine and sacred feminine operating system. Uh, and you can find the blockages, what's limiting, what's influencing, what's cutting off, filtering all the other stuff, and then you can get it up and running more and more. Usually they'll have bleed overs of other lives that are waiting for you to resolve, in anchorship on this timeline in the now. And once they're resolved, it heals the entireness of yourself and your ability to expand that energy to healing more and more, not just you, the people around you, and like miles around you, and even to the scale of the planet some people are operating on, and healing her and her ability to be balanced as well as expand in the healing of the sacred feminine, sacred masculine. Every person has this dynamic in them, and is mostly limited to 1%. Even the really powerful people are mostly limited to 1%. And that just tells you how powerful they would be if they weren't at 1%, because they're able to make it that strong even at that level. And you have that too. So if you want to, I'm looking at some of the things. I'll give you an example. So like you would form some type of meditation where you'd bring energy into your sacred feminine organs and
Yes.
expand upon getting rid of limitations, quarantines, doing the to-do list on if there are anything blocking you that is it's like a quarantine effect that we go through, both spiritually on this planet, but also in the individual, where we're quarantined to a low amount of state of ability, so we don't fuck up the timeline by, in our unawareness, getting our energy and ability stolen and then being used to keep the system going even longer and suppress people. So as we do the to-do list to resolve, protect your divinity or divine femininity, whatever you want to call it, you can protect it more and more, and it expands, and less gets stolen, less hijacked, and so that's what. If do you want to do that? I'm sensing yours right now. Is that okay if you want to do that?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so I'm working with your higher self now through a filtering, auditing, managing process by source, so that nothing is done without your permission, and I'm essentially giving you the blueprint to do it yourself and empowering you. So we're looking at the biggest blockages to your sacred femininity, and we're organizing them in a queue that you can then read one at a time. So we're gonna work on the biggest thing right now, might as well. And if it's like something that is high drama, I'll try to be vague about it so that I don't harm you through this. Let's see, I'm getting. So you'd be then like, oh, okay, is it have to do with just me? And it's like, it's not. I'm getting it's another version of you bleeding over you that has had great trauma to her divine femininity. I'm getting tongue tied. Blah.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Let's see, going
I
back
get
like
it.
before. Okay, it's bleeding over to that Egyptian version of you. So it's a big thing. So suppression to that version of you. Let's see. Energetic rituals being done to bind the sacred feminine of the planet and the people of the planet. Ooh, and even inner Earth groups. That's a big curse. Okay. Then, so this is affecting a lot of people essentially, and we're gonna initiate getting back your stolen energy that is being used to apply that to you with your authority. So you have a bunch of different versions of yourself back in time that have had their energy stolen and being used to keep this suppression around your uh, you know your feminine power. So then
Yeah.
we're gonna go back and take back your energy, audit it in like with your law skills. This will go in hand in hand, and where you can audit everything that's in lines of drama to you. Give your spiritual entourage the power that you've audited them as well, because you know, so that you're surrounded with your most trusted soul family and beings that have been friends with you many lifetimes and worked with you, and even versions of yourself which are easier to work with because they don't really want to hurt you. to be holding space in like your own spiritual type of court where you're auditing every line of things that are happening to you, and you can initiate in that, and we're expanding it more and more now so it encompasses that other version of you and they're able to resolve their drama. Let me see. This is a version. Okay, I'll tell you later off air because they don't want me to tell who they are. Okay, so we're initiating that. Then we're gonna monitor it as it progresses over time. If you were to say how much is that one thing, 98% of your blockage is in that. So if you get rid of that, you expand a lot in your feminine power, even though likely things will be like, oh shit, and they'll be trying to steal your energy in some other way or another version of you to block it back up. So it's like maintenance and spiritual hygiene that will help maintain that after you get that up, that weight off your shoulders and expanding to heal everyone around you. Hope that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense with what I'm going through because I am healing myself. That's one of the reasons I'm only doing one show right now. I'm only with PIR. I was on 4 different networks, and I was running like crazy, and I was still working in the law, and I was doing all of these things. And basically, a couple of months ago, I just stopped everything. I don't know how to explain it. It was like I wasn't even capable of continuing anything. Everything stopped. I quit doing the legal stuff. I quit doing all the radio shows but PIR. I basically I'm moving. I mean, everything, every single aspect of my life has changed within me. Every way that I'm seeing things, everything that I'm doing, I'm working a job that I'm not going to announce on the air, but it's something that if somebody had told me 6 months ago that I'd be doing, we'd all have a really good fucking laugh about it. And I love it. It's almost like this relief of pressure, like what you're talking about, because one of the things that I've experienced in this lifetime with the vision that I have and the things that being an empath, I don't just get a vision. When somebody walks past me, I can taste what they've eaten that day.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's, people are like, oh, that's crazy. Yeah, it's not that great. And I don't, it's not like something for me, like people, I listen to people and I watch people and I have admiration in a lot of ways for people who can control it, who can turn it off and on, who seem to be able to tap in and then like just tap in when they want to. I strive for that, and that's part of the manifestation, I think. My strive for manifestation is because first to understand why it is that I have the vision that I have, why it is that I see the things I see, but also to connect myself into Gaia, like to connect myself into why I'm here on a deeper level than just surviving. Because there has to be something more in tune for somebody who comes in, and I'm not saying just me, I think everyone comes in with this intent. I think everyone has it. It's just that some people, for some reason, got shooken up a little bit more or something and didn't get drugged down into the story. Does this make sense?
Absolutely.
I mean, it just seems so interesting from my perspective now because I really was getting kind of, last year I was really uppity. I started seeing myself, my ego was overtaking my being and being right and being not a star, but more like, well, whatever I'm saying is definitely how it's going to, that's what's happening and blah, 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 blah. And no, I guess the whole thing came down to is realizing that I'm here just like everyone else for whatever purpose and reason that is. I do feel that I have a very strong purpose in changing the planet, but maybe everybody does. And that's a consciousness of the feminine, in my opinion, of taking a look at everyone in the tribe and going, okay, where is it that you're bringing the light in? And allowing that to flow through myself, I guess, instead of seeing the negative. I refer to Jesus Christ, and everybody knows I am not a Christian, but I refer to something that I read about his healing. And that was, it wasn't that he was coming in and healing anyone. He already saw them healed. So it was just putting that energy back into them of being whole. As we all are, we've just been depleted, like you were saying, with the energy being taken. That hit me so hard in my lower back. It was almost like I could feel the pull, seriously. And because I am a powerful being, and it's not just like I'm bragging or I'm trying to boast myself. I'm a generator. So, if people understand about the different types of personalities and the different types of beings and the way that our bodies are actually, I want to use the word manufactured, but that's probably not the right word. But there are certain levels of, like, so some people they're just like a battery. And it's almost like they were genetically maybe made that way and then evolved unintentionally, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because I definitely, when I walk into a room, I feel everything and then I push it back out. And I mean, I can't help it. So if I'm in a good mood, everybody's going to be in a, not everybody. I mean, I'm not saying that it, like, oh yay, I'm ruling the whole existence or anything, but it's like my experiences is if I'm in a good mood and I'm rocking it and I'm happy, even if I come into a yucky situation, it doesn't take long before it completely switches. But if I'm in that low space, if I'm in that negative, I fucking hate this planet space that you talked about earlier, I can manifest some really, really good shit. Like some really fun drama. And it's, and I catch it, but it's like once it's moving, it's moving, and that's another lesson is riding the waves. It's like becoming a really good surfer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that analogy.
And enjoying it. Yeah. And enjoying it. That's the kick in the pants, is that when you get to a certain point, and I'm not saying that I'm always there, but when you get to a point of no matter what hits, you still can laugh about it. And not just from a fake point of like, oh shit, here it goes again. But I mean, really taking a look at, wow, like, what thought created this? Like, what is it in me? Like, how did I manifest this? What is it that brought this to me? And instead of looking at it as a negative, looking at it as more like a puzzle and taking those pieces and then putting them back like what you just did. And I, in my opinion, that's what you were doing in my lower chakra areas, was like just putting everything back in place.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's what's happening to the whole planet right now. Is everything's just, and I put in the chat earlier, I said, last couple months, I'm swinging. I am not in balance. I'm a Libra, first of all, and I'm an only child. I mean, I could go down all these lists. I'm a witch, on and on and on. So I have all these things that I could classify myself as. But what it all just came down to, for me, honestly, is like, one day I would wake up and I'm the biggest raving bitch in the world. The next day I would wake up and I would be the most loving person on the planet. And I'm catching myself just literally back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Until finally I'm just now almost at a calm space of no matter what hits me, I'm going to stay in this.
Mm.
And it's not overly excited. Sometimes it gets overly excited, and it's not underly excited. It's just a being space of awareness of, and it is exciting, actually. It feels grand. It's not dull. It's not unanticipating. It's more just like a freedom that I don't think most people have ever experienced. It's like when you jump into a perfect temperature pool naked, and you feel that water just almost wrap your being into the space that it's in, right? Like you become part of the water.
Yeah, that's
That's
Right.
what it's like. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, you gave me a lot with that. Um, yeah, you are a very powerful being. I know another version of yourself, as well as I've been working with your higher self before I even knew about your show. But yeah, you're doing a lot. You're holding up a lot of weight for not just yourself, but your viewership, and your helping them and the beings around you. Look, we'll be able to expand on that more, especially privately. But yeah, the empathic links. It's really cool that you have that technology that like leads into other abilities and other things that you've done in other lives, and as well as your DNA technology. Not everyone gets to be able to taste what another person is tasting. That goes into the technology of the tongue, which is incredibly advanced. It has to do with our speech, and it does so much. One of the, most used muscle. It's got a you can use it as a wand. You can use it to amplify things, light language, bring manifest into reality with linguistic wave genetics and modulations of the wave frequencies carrying light codes that then download into the perceiver. Your voice carries a lot of weight. Also, you're able to
You'll
tune
love
into a
this.
body technology with your throat chakra that I don't see many people activated, where they can link up your tongue to the perceptions of another person, and what they're
Right.
tuning into in it's like quantum energy sensor. It's like the same thing with your nose. It takes in the molecules of the air, but this is like with the more of the physical stuff that you're going into. Also, it leads to, I forget what it's called, it's like clairaudience, clairvoyance, and there's clairgusto, but I forget the one for the tongue. It's not that easily to manifest, and it goes into
What's
be able to taste the
okay?
DNA frequency and be able to also track it back, as well as see all lines, like you know how kids will put things in their mouth to uh,
Yes.
know them better. That's the same thing. You're downloading a shitload of information from that, and you can also, I mean,
Well, it tells me. I also get whatever they need. So it's like I'll get the taste originally. Like most people. Well, anyway, I'm not gonna get into what I taste, but anyway, it. So I'll taste something, and then I automatically get whatever it is they're lacking, or whatever will heal their body. So like one of the things I actually did a live showing where they could actually see the energetic image in the guy's face. I did this in Canada a couple of years ago. Anyway, and when I did that, they were trying to trick me, to be honest with you. Not so much, I don't think intentionally of malice, but they wanted to disprove as many as they could. And I was one of 5 that was on this panel. I was the last one that came on, and everyone had all their ideas, which was fine. As soon as I touched into the guy, I said lithium. I knew that they had injected him with lithium because I got the taste, and then it tells me.
yeah,
And so that, I mean, the whole thing was over at that point because the trick was over. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying, oh yeah, I was the only one, but it is something that I can't help it. It doesn't. It's not like I can turn it off and on. It's something that is a constant. And if somebody brings somebody else into the consciousness, I automatically connect to them as well. So if somebody's standing next to me and they're thinking of somebody, all of a sudden my consciousness goes to them, and I can read them as well.
mm,
It's like those lines you're talking about. Everything is so connected. People don't get like how really, 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 really connected it is.
yeah,
And I see it. I see it, I taste it, and I hear it. It's like all of my sensors are connected to those elements for
absolutely.
whatever
That's
reason.
a
I don't
great
know.
word for you to put, like elements, the elements of their being, essence, what they're emitting, because you're for instance, more advanced species with more advanced, I mean, oh, not more advanced tongue technology species, like snakes and lizards will flick them out to taste the air and the psychic pheromone of a being, and they'll program certain things through their experience for that taste test oracle type ability, where they'll be able to tune into the elemental essence of their being and see if they're over saturated with a certain type of elemental, and the taste not harm you. Um,
Yeah.
but it can be used negatively to harm you by like overloading the sense or you know so like
Or if
making
people
the
are on drugs,
uh,
if people are on heavy drugs around me, I can start to feel the effects.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And so that's something that I have to be conscious of as well. So if I start feeling weird around somebody, it's shield up, like then I disconnect from that because it's, even though I can still see it, or I can sometimes not always completely disconnect, if I shield up and kind of not allow it to affect me as much, I can see their story as opposed to falling into their story, if that makes sense.
uh,
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no,
I just thought that was
that's
interesting.
great. Yeah, and you're using as many senses as possible when going into tuning into a person and their energy and their biophoton emissions and aura and pheromone and elemental bodies, because you have a bunch of elemental bodies activated, so you're also syncing that with your tongue, and you're being taught this by dragons because they have that, um,
Yeah.
and you have dragon DNA as well, and that's going into your tongue ability, which leads to many different things, as well as like there's a touch pad above the tongue that like you can apply
Oh,
button systems to, that also like
yes.
modes of yoga go into this a little bit, like I think it's uh, was it, I forget what kind of they touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth and rub it on
Yes.
the between the hard and the soft palate, and it will produce alpha brain waves, as well as
Yes.
there's other systems you can program to using all your senses at once when you're tuning into someone to get a grander picture and process that almost in no time, so you can have it to then speak it and manifest that reality of what you're perceiving, and then resolve it if it needs resolving or whatever, and go over it because it expands a lot. So the tongue is connected to so much. It's connected to your heart. It comes out of the heart when you're first born, like, and then manifests the brain around that as the fetus. The heart is the first thing that there, but and just layers of mystery school into the tongue itself, and dormant psychic abilities that I tune into. So like you got a lot of that, and it's coming out naturally, and as you work with it, and that's really good that you're working with it because most people have no idea to even touch upon that.
Well, what's interesting is that I guess, and this is, so I noticed this a couple of years ago. It wasn't something that I was conscious of, but when I travel, and actually probably 98% of the time, I hold my tongue on the roof of my mouth. I don't know if everybody does that, but I don't think they do.
They
Um,
don't, but they should, because it creates
they
a
should.
current and that like amplifies your being and like circulates things that can automatically improve the body as well as um, ground the body and stimulate psychoactive states of being and meditation that and kundalini and other like concepts of frequency that can be unhijacked and brought into states of balance where they expand the being and not a negative experience. If there's negative positive experience with if you don't unhijack kundalini, but yeah, um but yeah.
Well, and that's a whole nother, because see, here's another thing, and this is what I tried to explain this a couple of times, and maybe you'll have a better definition for this, but I try to explain people with sexuality. It's not that I'm anti-sex or not into sex or any of that kind of stuff. I don't want to get into that, but I also feel that it's been a construct that is used to suppress our society. The focus of everything being a sexual activity on this planet is taking from the essence of that energy, which is actually meant, in my opinion, to shoot up through the chakras, right? It's like you take that feminine, that sexual energy that people feel and turn into another person, and you shoot that up through your spine, right? It almost like activates all the way up through each part, and then as it blows out of the top of your head, that's when you come into the blue light. It's That was probably too
Oh
much.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but it's a practice because that's another teaching that's been left out is everything. That's what I'm talking about with the rape culture. It's like it's taken the sexual energy and perverted it into rape or just giving of self, as opposed to using that energy to connect to everything. I mean, that's the source. You're talking about our manifestation. The sexual organs are where we're created. So obviously the energy, the source, the whole essence of that area would reflect that, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah, we've been abused a lot in our culture, and that's passed down through genetics, and it suppresses our sexuality. What we even know about sexuality is like completely perverted from most perspectives that will bring it to you. Um, like growing up, I was taught like, oh, it's normal for a male to think of sex every 7 seconds, and I just thought that was normal. No, it's not. There's varying ways to
That's
balance the sexual body and bring it into optimum capacity so that you're able to take full control of it and not be up to the comes and flows of the energy of what you entangle with. Like many beings may have a psychic pheromone that will trigger that person being sexual. The the we're programmed into making sex think of it in a not sacred way, like more of thinking the other person as an object that we just get off with. And if we see it as a energetic exchange that amplifies each other, helps heal one another, and is like a really easy button to making the bogged down feeling go away, and all the if we can connect to the one we love, we can get more into sensuality in that technology as well. The sexual body can be very powerful, especially based on what DNA you have and who you are as a spirit, and can be influenced. The sexual body can get influenced by other people's from a distance and take on trauma that then keeps a habit pattern going of domination, or I don't know. There's and also
huge.
bombard us with shame, blame, and guilt, and
Yes.
harvesting energy for the sexual body is a big thing because the system sees it as very
Oh,
valuable in creative force. So like,
well, that's part of. I mean, I believe that is part of the harvesting, and I made a big deal out of this when uh, it was Rockefeller. Was it Rockefeller or Rothschild that died? I'm sorry. I'm all of a sudden. Um, but I made a big deal out of the timing because it was on the equinox, right? Which if people understand about the moon and about Saturn, how they're influencing the planet, in my opinion, and take it for what it is they are using the energy of Saturn. Saturn actually, the rings around Saturn are energetic. They are vibrational and channeling certain, it's like your fingers. So if you look at your hands, your middle finger is Saturn, right? Because it is the source of your sexual energy. It's the source of creation, right? It was probably originally the sun. I'm not sure about that, but it seems like with everything that I've learned, there is some true effect that Saturn is influencing our planet in a grand way. But what's happened with this manipulation and the construct that's come in is that they are perverting it, right? They're taking that energy. I don't know if they're using the moon. I don't know if they're using technologies that I have no concept of, but they are using that energy, twisting it and shoving it into people, and that is causing perversion. It also causes, which this is probably a little off the chart, a lack of magnesium, which as soon as a male species, any male species, humanoid or not, on this planet is given a low amount of magnesium, their sexual desires rise. Um, what is it? The testosterone, everything rises to compensate. And it's kind of interesting. So the lack of zinc and the lack of magnesium are two things on the planet that they are making sure that happen with the GMO and the chemtrails and all of that, the focus that people are having, in my opinion, is just faltered because it's a distraction. What they're trying to do is keep everyone in the construct of things that they don't see, which is those vibrational waves that, unfortunately, most of the time I do get to see, and it is like a matrix. And they do come in heavier at different times, and I can tell sometimes when they're fake and sometimes when they're from the planetary system, because they've mastered some things that are beyond my comprehension of technology even. But there's things happening in Antarctica that nobody really understands that, in my vision, are creating and manifesting things on this planet that we will be experiencing within the next year. I don't know what direction that's going to go, but I think that that, again, has everything to do with what people are holding within themselves. We had this opportunity to clear our shit. If we did it, great. If we didn't, then we're going to get to relearn it. And I don't know, I don't want to say, oh, everybody gets to go back to school, but it is. It's like everybody's going back to school with a new teacher. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know. What do you think, Sean? I mean, how do you see the whole construct, and even people, like even with what you're talking about, how many people around you, and I'm not talking about your circle, I'm talking about if you go to the grocery store, how many people can you actually approach with this type of language or understanding that, one, don't look at you like a deer in the headlights or look at you like you're completely crazy?
Yeah, not many. Yeah,
And it's,
so,
yeah, it's not a tag, but it's like showing that the consciousness level outside of our circle is not where it needed to be.
yeah,
Something like that. What do you think of that?
yeah. So like, it is kind of like we're getting a better teacher. The old teacher is abusive. With the Saturn stuff that you're tuning into, it was really good with intuition because a lot of the system domination control and what they're resolving and culminating in being quarantined and getting taken down because they have systems that they're trying to connect in influence and control through like AI signals that steal the processing power of multiple planets and then use that to overwhelm beings in influence and suppression and light body hacking or like
Yes.
infiltration through that. And most of the system runs through all the planets on this in this solar system to their resolution because they're trying to be a have a big blanket of control. But when because the light forces are constantly trying to take down their shit as they formulate new strategies and try to create a new counter chess move for everything, and it goes back and forth. Um, as things get discovered and taken down and resolved and quarantined, it essentially gets quarantined all in this solar system and then run down through the planets. And the last few things to resolve their stuff is Earth, Saturn, and the Moon, which in that the system wants to maintain last ditch controls over. Saturn is processing the majority of the darkness energy in the solar system. So if we didn't have Saturn, a lot of the planets in the solar system would be destroyed. So in that light, it's a plus, but it's also being, you know, influenced and suppressed and targeted to the point where it is hard to balance itself. So it is taking on a huge amount of drama. In that way, I see it as good. So it's majority of the system it doesn't like, and it is utilizing as it knows how for its lots of its own agendas, as well as it's unifying more and more with the rest of the solar system and resolving things. The consciousness of Saturn has light, dark, and neutral through all of its existences through the multiverse and can be found remedy with. If you have points of drama that go back to Saturn, you can reclaim your energy and get rid of all drama and lay down the swords with that being, because most of the drama that you'll be getting isn't from that being itself, but what it is holding space for in its various realms of reality. It has all the planets in our solar system have many realms. very powerful in what they're holding up in for planets, like incredible amounts of stuff other planets couldn't even deal with. And like Saturn has multiple realms in it, heaven and hellish realms. Like hell or like how I described them would be more of like quarantine realms for things the dark seem to have last ditch effort in trying to maintain a system of control there, despite the planet having some other agenda and influencing them for a long-term chess move. And it is throwing off and beating up beings left and right to do that. And there's a lot of help that is going to help Saturn resolve that, because if Saturn resolves a whole bunch of its stuff, a lot of our stuff will stop being amplified. Same thing with the Ramoon, that is being used as a leapfrog point for frequencies of suppression. And Saturn's rings are amplifying that like a radio tower, and it's disentangling them as it goes. But seeing as it's holding up the majority of the darkness for the rest of the solar system, there's a lot to do. So I have that perspective with Saturn. He is healing from the shit he's done. He seems to be like, with when you're looking at astrology and how the body takes in cosmic radiation of like the surrounding environments and frequencies that are emitted off the planets and the stars. Saturn has a chess move in the solar system in manifestation. We would manifest differently if the solar system was organized differently. All the planets have a chess move in they are holding space in a way for the varying species growing up on the planet, so that like a child growing up and not being able to walk, like you got to stop them from walking down the stairs or falling down the stairs and all this stuff. They are holding up the man's place responsibility of certain technology that we have in our body until we are ready to take the man's place responsibility ourselves and hold it up, which we can enter that process at will with our higher self, and reclaim our technology, get rid of all the infiltrations, the hijacking, the deprogram, the self-limiting programs that get in our way, and self-sabotage. Saturn has connections with pretty much every chakra in the body, as well as the other planets in some form of influence. That planet seems to be more in holding up the gravity of the targeting of the crown chakra, and as well as the sexual body with the sacral. But like expanding into that, like with Kronos being the crown, and that's one of the most targeted points in the body. So it's not, and I don't envy that job at all. So you can retake control of by going through the mystery schools of the self, or the chakras, the sephira, or whatever you want to use as a anchorage concept for filing the different aspects of it, and rebalance that, as well as what leads into the sexuality, which he is getting bombarded with lots of targeting, which will inevitably unbalance his sexual body as a planet and the varying beings that are entangled with that, and then how that leaks over to other people, because if you're in this solar system, you're likely going to have versions of yourself on Saturn in some way, resolving things in light, dark, or neutral.
I mean, I think if you take a
So you're
the
right.
rape culture that we're,
The sexual body influence.
yeah, and it seems like that's the reflection on the planet as well. And it's, if you know, I mean, I don't know about other people, and this may be too much information, but I've been sitting on the internet just playing on Facebook or doing things, posting, whatever it is I'm doing, and all of a sudden get some weird sexual feeling in my body. Not weird. I mean, you know, like all of a sudden I'll feel sexual, and it's like, it's not because I'm looking at something sexual. It's not because I'm feeling anything or had thoughts of anything sexual, that's where I feel like we are bombarded. Because what are people based in right now? You know, you take a look at our society, it's money, sex, and rock and roll, right? I mean, it's a funny saying, but it's the celebrities, right, that they use to distract, the money system that they use to control, and the elite that are profiting from it. And I'm not just talking about the elite people, I'm talking about what you're talking in these dimensional structures. It's handed down, right? So we're seeing the reflection of it on the planet with these small groups that really mean nothing, right? They're just like us. We put them on these, it's like the reptilians. They villainized them and made them into the bad guy and this and that. But in my reality or my experience, they are suffering the same as we are.
Yeah.
And not really understanding what's happened because of while this manipulation has been going on, the DNA deactivations and the memory stripping, people don't realize that as a human child being born, and I know I've claimed this on other shows, but you can actually look this up, a human child that is born on this planet in the third or fourth trimester of birth, the mother actually secretes a chemical, a hormone into the baby that wipes its fucking memory.
Yes.
Why would it have to do that? You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, and then to say that we're not genetically somehow manifested or created, again, I just have to question, wow, like that's pretty detailed.
Yeah. Like that's not a so like the great forgetting concept of like us going through the mucous membrane and the placenta, exiting the placenta of the void activates the great forgetting, and going through the great forgetting of the birth canal, getting our memory wiped, scrambled, and going through the archonic grid of trying to see who's incarnate as that baby and who they're going to be, make a predictive model for them that lifetime. That's not a natural, state of being. Not not every planet in the galaxy has the state of reincarnation. They'll have like an incarnating process where they will remember in some way, shape, or form. The reincarnation system is kind of something that was brought in, though it can be used as a positive in the growing state of the childhood, is something that is very much sought after and valued and cherished, because not every being gets to do that. They remember who they are in lifetimes and at like very young age, and so it's a different growing up process, and it's like a
I'm
refresher.
sure it,
So like it has a
yeah,
negative and
fresh
positive
start.
aspect to it. If you want to heal that state of being, absolutely go for it. Because like once you've gone through that growing up process, you don't really need to. That you can start remembering more of who you are, and uh, yeah, uh, the process in genetic engineering would culminate in getting the being to forget, and you can absolutely switch that off. Especially if you're sacred, and there are certain mystery schools I believe that are surviving that initiate that through a ceremony or ritual that turns off that chemical from being released, so that they have a better chance of remembering more of themselves when they are born.
Oh, I think that all of that is so amazing. We're at the end of the show. I don't, Ben, are you here? Are you with me? Are we going to be able to stop now? Uh, it's, it's because the show is based and centered out of Ireland. It is however many hours ahead. I think 7 hours ahead of us. So it's, in the middle of the night there. So he could have fallen asleep. And what we're going to do is we're going to hang up, and hopefully anyone who's listening will be going to bed themselves. They probably should. And meditate and eat something good for you or whatever you need to do. Anyway, it was great having this conversation with you, Sean. I hope you'll come back on with me. I feel like I kind of forget that we're even on the air sometimes, because these are the conversations that are so important in my expansion and understanding and confirmation and on and on and on. So I really appreciate you coming on with me. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be on your show, and thank you so much for meeting me again this lifetime. And I look forward to definitely coming on again in your show. And thank you so much for what you do for the world.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. All right, everybody. Good night. I hope you all have a great night, a great weekend, and enjoy the rest of your week. See you later.